Hilchas Machoris Asuros Perek Shleisha Aser. Here the Rambam continues as the final, the third Perek B'Negeya, the halachas of Yain Nesach, and the Rambam is discussing when are we choishes that the guy was menasech the Yain. Halikeach bias, a shesacher bias b'chatzeri shalakum. You have a chotzer which is a guy's chotzer, and the yid either he bought a house in that chotzer or he rented a house. Umelo yain, he put wine into his house, into the house he rented, the house he bought. But it's a house, it's a chotzer of a guy. Is imhoya Yisraeli dor ba'isa chotzer. Is afal pisha pesach pasuach. Is hayayin mutter, even though the guy lechura has access there. But the yain is mutter. Mepnei sha'akum mefachet tamid. Ve'emer ati yikonis lebeisei piseim. V'yimtzeisi b'tech beisei. In other words, he has no business being in that house. So Memele, since he's always worried, the yid lives there. So Memele, he may walk into this house. So, and I have no business being here. So Memele, he won't walk into this house. However, the yid didn't live in the yid rented a house in this chutzner, or he owns a house in this chutzner, but he doesn't live here. So then, as lay yetze, he shouldn't leave the house of the chutzner. Ad she yizger abayis. First, he has to lock the house. In other words, to get into the house, you need a key, and also, and the wine that's in the house is sealed, and the yah mafteach v'hachoisim biyodei. So the seal, which he seals the wine, which is in the house, he has the seal. So obviously the goy won't be able to use that seal. So that's considered one seal. And secondly, there's also a lock. So even though the goy, if he if he makes a key, so he'll be able to get into the house. But on the other end, it's a tircha to make a key, to forge a key. So it's considered a choisem b'toy choisem. That's considered two simonim. Side the choisem on the barrel, which the yid has. The choisem, in those he has this. So he makes the choisem on the when you smear the barrel on top. So you pick a choisem. So mele, if you'll open the barrel, so you'll see that the seal is broken. And al derech zeh, there's another seal that's called the fact that the door is locked. That's considered a choisem b'tei choisem. So even though he doesn't live in that chotzer, but nevertheless, and it's, so to speak, the goy lechura has access, but it's watched with a choisem b'tei choisem. That's together. Is leyetze at sheyizger habayis. The house should be locked. V'yeh hamafteach v'hachoisem biyod. He should have side the key, inside the choisem, which with he seals the barrel. Ve'ein choishes shemi yizayef ha'akum mafteach habayis. Because if we're not breaking the seal, obviously l'chur you could tell if you broke the seal, but having the seal is not enough because that's only a choisem echad. You have to have shtei chisamis. The second choisem is the fact that the house is locked. The goy could make over a key. We're not choishish. That's fart. It's a tircha. So memela, that's considered another choisem. Like we'll learn later that if you have a jar that's tightly closed, and then on that top of the jar you also have a seal. So it's called a chesem b'tei chesem. Agam tightly closed, it can be open, but it's a tircha to open it. So it's a tircha that's also considered a chesem plus another chesem. Halacha beis. Yotza v'lei soger ha-pesach. So b'kitzur, if he lives in the chotzer, so everything's beside. Mashenkin, if he doesn't live in the chotzer, you need a chesem with a chesem, and that means you have to have a chesem on the wine. Plus, you have to also have the door is locked. That's called and you have to have the chesem with you. In other words, the guy shouldn't have access to the chesem, and obviously you should have the key with you. Yotza v'lei soger ha-pesach. So it's as if you're Sogar, because the guy is like in charge of the house. Is which is the rule. The halacha is that when there's a chash that the guy, the stam yainam is aser b'hano. Yain which a guy touched, even if it belongs to Yad Yisrael, and it was shich, so we're chayshish that he was that is menasech. So it's also aser b'hano. Masha'inkin over here in Tzamatzah, we don't even know that he got to it. He knows he may have gotten to it. So over here it's aser b'shtir. That's the din. Is harei hayayin aser b'shtir. Shem and nichnas ha'akum v'nisach. She're'ena Yisraeli shom, because the yid is not there. So mele there's a reason to concern, and there was no choisem b'tei choisem. So therefore there's a concern that the goy came into that house and it was nasser the wine. That's talking about when he gave him the key. So kilo, he gives him the key, so he has a right to go into the house. However, I'm not giving you the key, but that you have a balabatishkeit over the house. I'm telling you, I have a locked house, and I want you to watch the key for me. So it's clear that he has no right to go into the house. So that's still considered, the fact that the door is locked is still considered a choisem. And Mamela Hayayin Mutter Shuli Mosuli Shmiras Habayis. El Shmiras Hamaftech. If he gives him a key stam, so Mamela we assume he gave me the key, it means I'm like Kilo, I'm a shtickle manager over here, so I can walk into the house. Masha'inkin, if you told me clearly, just watch the key for me. So Mamela means you have no right to go into the house. So that's still considered a choisem, but a choisem, in other words, there's the seal on the wine, plus the fact that the door is locked, and even though he has a key, but he has no right to go in with the key. So Mamela is considered the door locked. Halacha Gimel. Akum shesocher Yisrael lidrich leyeni betara. You have a guy that wants to make wine, but he wants it should be kosher wine. He wants a Yid should be able to buy the wine. So he hires a Yid to make him kosher wine. They should make kosher wine. So even though Bechlal, you're not allowed to buy wine from a stam yenim of a guy is usher. The Chura, there's an isser of wine also mitzad b'nei seyam. But over here, this brings from Avnei Nezer, that over here, since the dricha was al Yidei Yisrael, and there was a chatchila made al Yidei Yisrael, so Mamela, there's no isser of wine of a goy, or the isser of the wine of a goy, which is connected to Mishum b'nei seyam, doesn't apply here. A goy hired a Yid to make him kosher wine. And the wine was lying in a house that belonged to a guy. Obviously, it wasn't the house where the guy was living, because then obviously there's a chash that the guy will be menasech. Over here we're talking about it's a house. It was a storage house. It was a place where he stored the wine, but the house belonged to the guy. And now the Yid is kilo in charge to make sure that it's kosher wine. This Yid, which is responsible, he's going to be like, so to speak, selling the wine to the Yidden on behalf of the guy, and Akilu being the mashgiach, he's going to be the one that's going to say that it's a kosher wine. So if this Yid, which is the Shemer Hayayin, lives in that chotzer, so even though the wine finds itself in a bayishul goy, is Hayayin mutter, v'afal pisha pesa pasua, because we're not afraid that the goy is going to go in and do something to the wine, because they'll always be afraid that the Yid will see him going in, and Mamela, the wine is going to become kosher. But v'afal pisha pesa pasua, v'ashemer nichnas v'yetzi, he's not there the whole time. But nevertheless, he's always afraid. However, so here, hayayin osir, ba'afal pisha mafteach v'chesim b'yad Yisrael. There's a chidush that since it's the yayin of a goy, so it doesn't even help a chesim b'techesim. There's even the fact that there's a mafteach and there's a chesim, and the chesim is b'yad Yisrael. Mafteach is b'yad Yisrael doesn't help. Why? Because kiven shayayin shalakum uber shusei. The wine belongs to a guy, and it's in his house. He's not afraid to go in there. What it'll be, so the worst thing is they won't be able to sell to a Yid. In a case where it's a Yid's wine, and the problem is that the guy may come in and access to it. The guy has no right to come there, but we're afraid maybe the guy will go in when the Yid is not watching, since the guy is not in the house. So and that helps a chosim b'tei chosim. A chosim b'tei chosim will prevent the guy from coming into the house which really belongs to the Yid or is rented by the Yid, and he has no right to go in there. Masha'inkin over here, it's the guy's wine, and the guy is not expecting the Yid to be watching him. Maybe the Yid will find out, so the guy is not afraid. So a chosim b'yad chosim is not going to help for goyish wine. For wine that belongs to a goy, that the goy is not afraid to go into the house, because even if he's caught, the worst comes to worst. He's not going to be a ganef. The worst comes to worst, they won't buy from him. Halacha dalet. Afilu kosev o akum li Yisrael sheniskabu mimenu hamoyes. He wrote a mashtar that he already received the money, so it's kilu, it's the Yids. No, we learned like this. The wine that belongs to a Yid, the goy is afraid to get involved in if it's a chaysim b'tei chaysim, or if the Yid is living in the city, in the chotzer. Masha'inkin, the wine that belongs to a goy, the only eitzah is if the Yid is living in the chotzer. Masha'inkin, if the Yid doesn't live in the chotzer, so even if it's a chaysim b'tei chaysim, it's not going to help. Now, what happens if the goy ki'ilu made that the Yid owns the wine? How? He wrote him a shtar saying that he already got the money. So ki'ilu is the Yid. So now that it's the Yids, so maybe it should help the fact that it's a chaysim b'tei chaysim, the fact that there's a chaysim and there's a mafteach, and the Yid has the Chaysim Mafteah. So we say no, but since Aliba the Emes, it's really the Goys, and the Yid Aliba the Emes didn't pay him, so it's really the Goys. So Memela, this star is not going to help. That's what he's saying. Afilu Kosev Akam Yisrael, Shniskabel Mimenu Hamois Limker Libehemayayim. Aber hail the emissaries, the Eina Yisraeli Yochel Yitzim Rishus Akum. Achi Yitli Hamois, the Goy is not going to let him take it out, so the pale is the Goys, is Areza Shalakum, and therefore Va'asr. Elim Hayashem Edoshim B'Chatzah. The only answer for that, the wine of a Goy has to have a shomer. And that shomer has to be a shomer that he's not away. He's here. He doesn't have to be there the whole time. He has to be a Yitzim and Nichnas. But he can't be a shomer that lives elsewhere. And Memela, so the Goy assumes that he's not here. Ein Hashem b'tzarech liyas yeshuv b'shamar tamid al nichnas v'yetzik mishu b'yanu. Bein b'shus ben balayayin, whether the wine is actually in the Goy's rishus, the Goy that owns the wine, or even bein b'shus akamacher, even if it's in another Goy's rishus, so the chura, how's he going to get in there? So the answer is because that other Goy will let him. The other Goy will let him come in. It says in order to be menasach, he'll let him come in, even though he's like a shamer. It's in his domain. So we're also chayshish. So if it's in the Yid's Rishus, no, he's not talking about if it's in the Yid's Rishus, we're not chayshish. But if it's in the Goy's Rishus, or if it's in another Goy's Rishus, we are chayshish. Hoye yayin zeh hator shalakum muna b'shus harabim. Ebe bayis hapasuach l'shus harabim v'yisrael heilchim v'shavim. So in other words, over there, the shomer is not there, but it's l'pel, it's pasuach l'shus harabim. So since it's Pasuach l'Shus Harabim, he's always afraid that Yidden are passing by and they'll see him going into that house, and Memela, so the house is, so the wine is going to not become kosher anymore. Because the guy is accessing this wine. Or it's lying in Shus Harabim, so L'chatchila, it's not B'Rshus HaGoy, so he's always worried that Yidden will see him. So Memela, so then it's Mutter Shadai, L'nichlis B'Rshus Harakum. The only concern is when the wine is B'Rshus HaAkum, and then the Goy is not afraid to go in there because it's his wine. And Memela, so he's not afraid to go in there. So if he's afraid of being seen, whereas if he's afraid of being seen, so then that's considered a fear. But if right now he's not afraid of being seen, but he's afraid of being caught, on someone else's wine, on the Yid's wine, he's afraid of being caught. If it's a chaysim, b'tei chaysim. Masha'inkin, if it's his own wine, he's not afraid of being caught. He's only afraid of being seen when he's actually doing it. That's l'chura the din. Shadayin lenichnas b'shus harakum. It's not b'shus harakum. So memela. So therefore over here he's knows when it's b'shus harakum. So it's already by him. So I don't know if it's like it's a metzias dikazach. If it's b'shus harakum, so it's already by him. So memela. The only question is, of him being caught. If he'll being caught, so Memela, no, they'll catch that he did it. They catch that caught that he do it. They'll catch that he did it. So that he's not afraid of. Masha'inkin, if it's not b'Rshus HaAkum, so there's afraid maybe he'll be seen doing it. So b'chia gavna, so we're not choishish that he's going to go if it's b'Rshus Harabim, or it's a bias hapasuach l'Rshus Harabim. I mean, Shadayin lenichnas b'Rshus Harakum is l'chura going on when it's b'Rshus Harabim mamish. When it's a bias hapasuach l'Rshus Harabim, it's not because Shadayin lenichnas b'Rshus Harakum. The vort is because he's afraid of being seen when he's going into that house. Sure. Yeah. Halacha vav. So we learned that wine that finds itself in the Rishus Harabim, or there's access from the Rishus Harabim to see what's going on going into the house. So that doesn't become usher, even if the wine belongs to a goy. Now he's saying v'ashpa, if you have a dump, a garbage dump, or the chalein, a window, which Advazkas Mishnah say belongs to a goy, a kolpon, it belongs to a yid. I'm sorry, that it belongs to the yid. So it's on the chalein. So I'm not sure the exact sear. It's on the windowsill, or the decal. We have a palm tree. Is afal pisha ein bepeir. So the people aren't going up to take fruit from it. But people go up maybe for other reasons. There are other reasons that the palm tree could be used to go up on the palm tree. So the din is harei l'Rishus Harabim. These three things, ashpa, chalein, and dekel, have a din Rishus Harabim. And therefore, v'chavis yayin sham, if you have a barrel of wine, and ba'akum animtza sham eina isra, the fact that the guy is standing over there even next to this barrel of wine, we're not choishish. Just like since the wine is in Rishus Harabim, so we're not choishish that maybe the guy did something to the wine, because the guy will be afraid. So al derech zeh, if this wine finds itself either in the ash, the chavis wine is in the ashpo or in the chalein or under this decal, so then so even though the guy is standing over there, nevertheless is ein esrog. And also a bias a pasuach l'sham. If you have a bias which is pasuach to the ashpo, pasuach to this chalein, I'm not sure that's here, and also it's pasuach to the decal. So there's always afraid maybe someone's going up on this decal and seeing what's happening in this bias, or seeing someone going into this bias. Is hareu kapasuach l'shus harabim, and memela, so it doesn't have a din, so it doesn't asur. So nachamo. If you have a wine that belongs to we're talking about wine that belongs to a guy. Belongs to a guy, and now he wants it to be kosher. So a yid made it for him, and it was all kosher. But on the other hand, now it's b'rshus ha'akum. It's b'rshus ha'akum. So it's b'rshus ha'akum. So it has to be ba'ifum kazeh that the yid could see him going into it. So if the yid lives in the chotzer, it's beseder. If the bias is pasuach l'rshus harabim, it's also beseder. If the bias is pasuach to this ashpa, chalein, and dekel, which there's a concern that someone will see from there what's going on in this bias, so it's also mutter. That has a din of a Rishus Harabim. Even though they're not itself a Rishus Harabim, it has a din of Rishus Harabim, because he's always afraid. Maybe someone is going to look from the window and see him. Someone's going to look from the decal and see him. Someone's going to look from the ashpa and see him. That's the din that is Pasuach Rishus Harabim. Now, that is, if it's there, so it's considered that it's Nimsa Rishus Harabim. Okay. Halacha Zayin. Chotzer hachaluka b'msipis, b'msipim. So it's a chalukah which is markers, and a msipim is not a fence. It's like little markers to show where's my property, where's your property. Little markers. Va'akum b'tzad zev, Yisrael b'tzad acher. One side a yid's living, one side a guy's living. V'chein shnei gagim, you have two roofs. So you gag Yisrael l'mayla, v'gag akum l'mata. So the Yiddish roof is higher. So in other words, if the gag akum l'mata and the guy's roof is lower a little bit. Or they're next to each other. Is afal pi sheyado akum magas lechelik Yisrael. L'chura be'etzem the yid, the guy could stick over his hand to the tzad Yisrael and l'chura be menasech. There's everything that's found beyond tzad Yisrael. There's no kshash of ya'inesech. There's no kshash of tares, because the guy is not going to stick over his hand and do it. Because lepeil, if he sticks over his hand and someone sees him, so he looks like a ganav. What's he sticking his hand into the other side, which is not his property? Now, if the guy is lower, the guy is higher and the yid is lower, so then there's a chash that the guy kilu could say, even if he's sticking out his hand, that something dropped, or maybe he'll make something drop. He'll make something drop from his rishus into the yid's rishus. Memela, he'll have an excuse to stick out his hand, and while he's sticking out his hand, he could be menasech. And you'll ask him, "What are you sticking out your hand?" The answer is no, because something fell. That's b'medvar mamur if the guy is higher and the yid is lower. Mashenken fakert, if the yid is higher and the guy is lower, so memela, the guy has no excuse. What's he doing, sticking out his hand into the yid's possession, into the yid's side? Now there is if they're together, if they're on the same height. So memela b'chiyai gavna, we're not choishish that the guy will stick out his hand. That's the halacha ches. Muter liyisrael lahafkid yenei b'keli sosum b'yad akum v'hu sheyili b'shnei siman, which is really the yisod of what we're learning the whole time now. Because a person has wine, Yiddish wine, and he wants to give it to a guy to hold. He's giving it as a pikadon. So he could give it to the hands of a guy as long as there's two simanim. That's choisem b'tei choisem, which we said, l'chura, the whole idea of that side there's a choisem and side there's a mafteach, that's also together of a choisem b'tei choisem. Ketzad. Sosam hachovis b'keli she'eni mahudach, kederech she'seism kolodem v'tok b'tid. If you just covered the chovis, and it wasn't really tight, and then on top you smeared it with tit, so that's a chesem echad. That's considered a chesem echad. However, because the siman is only the tit. However, it was tightly closed, and the tochal of mamayla you smeared it on with tit. So then it's a chesem b'tei chesem. That's called a chesem b'tei chesem. V'chein, if you would have, let's say, a pouch, in tsar pianed, if you just tied around the top of the pouch, is a chesem echad. That when you tied it, you tied it, that's considered one chesem. However, as you made a shinui, you normally the pouch is just sticking out, the top of the pouch is sticking out. Here you took the top of the pouch and you made it like you turned it inside. You turned the top of the pouch inside, which is unusual. And the tzarolov, and then you tie it around that pouch. So notice the pouch is sticking inside, and sudarsu you also tied. So that's how reza chesem techesem. V'chein kol shini shemishanim midvarim she'ein derech kol adam. You did something different. So then is hareza hem kechesem echad. Anything you do different is considered a chesem echad. V'aticha yakshira. And then when on top of this thing that you did different, you tied it or you smeared it with tit. So then that's a chesem sheni. Halacha tes v'im hifkid b'yad akum b'chesem echad. So then is a reza asur b'shtiya umutar b'ano, and also v'hu sheyichad lekeren zavis. So in other words, if you only have a chesem echad, so it only helps that it should be mutar at least b'hano if you are hifkid, if you are yichad lekeren zavis. So it comes out that it's keilu is b'rshus yisrael. That's what the Tazim masber. In other words, if you have two chesamas, even if you're mafkid b'yad akum, you don't have to have yichad lekeren zavis. As long as there's two chesamas, it's mutar. Even you give it to the guys, there's two chesamas, it's mutar. But if you only have one chesam, so if it's mamish biyad akum and there was no yichud lekeren zavis, one chesam doesn't help. Mashengen, if it was yichud lekeren zavis, so keilu it's b'rshus yisrael, but the guy has access to it. It's like it's b'rshus yisrael, but the guy has access to it. So then a chesam echad helps that al kol parim shouldn't be asur b'shtiya. It's only it shouldn't be asur b'no. And it's only asur b'shtiya. Masha'enken, if it's not in a keren zavis, it's mamish b'rshus akum. So then not only is it asur b'shtiya, it's also asur b'no. Halacha yud. Now until now we were talking about the concern that the goy will go ahead and be menasech the yayin. But there's another chash of a goy that is replacing something. You give him one thing and he may give you something else. And over there there's an issue whether the concern is on a deraisa dika level or on a derabbanan dika level. If it's a concern on a derabbanan dika level, for that is chesem echad is enough. Masha'enken, if it's a concern on a deraisa dika level, so for that you need two chesamas. That's the din we're going to learn here. Yayin mavushal, you give a goy yayin mavushal, or v'hashecher, which is beer. A yayin she'irvim dvar macherim, you gave him yayin which you mix with other things, kin dvash v'shemen. So mainly yayin mavushal and yayin which you mixed other things, there's no kshash of nisuch, because the goy can't, it's not an union of nisuch. So what is the kshash? The kshash is only maybe he'll replace the wine. You gave him one yayin mavushal and he's going to give you other yayin mavushal. Now what's the problem with his yayin mavushal? The problem of his yayin mavushal is stam yenim, because stam yenim is also. So again, stam yenim is isum d'rabbanan. So there's yayin nesach is isum d'raisa, but stam yenim is the chayisah d'rabbanan. So memela over here we're choishish that maybe he replaced this wine. That's the issue. Yayin mavushal or v'hashecher. We have to know what the problem of shecher is. But I'll call upon him v'hashecher a yayin she'irvim dvar macherim kin dvash v'shemen, which over there's no kshash nisuch. V'chein hachoymetz, you have vinegar, which again, vinegar you can't be menasach, but there's a problem. He'll replace the vinegar with his vinegar, and his vinegar is also because his vinegar comes from yayin, which was tam yenim is also. Or v'hagvina v'hacholav, again, you give him cheese, you give him milk. So what's the chashash? The chashash is maybe he'll replace the cheese, he'll replace the milk with his cheese and with his milk. And Mela, what'll be the problem? It's Isur D'Rabbanan. V'chol she'isurim d'vrei seifrim, all dvarim which are asim d'vrei seifrim, she'efkida b'yadakum, which you gave it to a goy, and if it's the goy, it would be asim d'Rabbanan, is ein tzarich shnei chisamis al chesem echad bulvat v'day. So as long as you have one, so if you give a goy yayin mavushal, you give a goy yayin which with dvash v'shem, you give him choymetz, you give him gvina, you give him cholav. So all these things, as long as there's a chesem echad, there's no problem, because there's no kshash. And the kshash that maybe replaced it is, since the whole kshash is only on a d'rabbanan level, so a chesem echad is enough. However, aval hayayin, if you give him wine, so over there's a kshash on the raisa level, maybe it was menasachet. Or v'habosser, you give him meat, and if you replace the meat, it's treifa meat, mederaisa. Or v'chtichas dag, if you give him a piece of fish, and he's going to give you a different fish, so the male will be isur deraisa. She'en basimin, she'ifkida miyad akum, So on that, these pieces of meat that themselves don't have a simon. So Mimela is sichim shnei chesamas. You need shnei chesamas because over here, the Kudas Advarim is a chash of him changing something that he'll replace it for a different type of thing. So if it's a deraisa, if it's a concern deraisa, in other words, a concern deraisa, you need shnei chesamas, and a concern derabanan, you only need one ches. That's the Kudas Advarim. A concern deraisa, you need two chesamas, and that's not so much replacing, not replacing. In other words, nisuch is a concern deraisa, so maybe you need two chesamas. Masha'enkin, a replacement. There's no chash nisuch. There's only shayla replacement. So that's, and what's the chash if he replaces it? That is stam yenam. No, stam yenam is only a chash, is only a din d'Rabbanan. A din d'Rabbanan is you need one ches. Yeah. Now the Rambam also says sheikh. What's the problem of sheikher? So the Rambam brings from the Beis Meir that he says that there's a sheikher, there's a din, there's a issa d'Rabbanan to drink sheikhel shalakum bebeis akum, to go into a goyish place and to drink sheikhel shalakum is also. So that's the word. So you gave the guy sheikher, and now you're going to go drink it in his rishus. So there's a chash d'Rabbanan that maybe it's his sheikher. So maybe it's ending up that you're drinking his sheikher in his house. I mean, it's hard to understand because the issur of drinking sheikher in a bayis shel nachri is because it's his sheikher. If it's officially your sheikher, maybe it's really his sheikher. The issur is not like the chafts of sheikher is also. It's the issur is drinking sheikher b'bayis shel nachri. If you take it out of the bayis shel nachri, so then it would be mutter. So you're going to say the guy is giving you sheikher, which be'emes you gave him sheikher. So you're not really sure if he's giving you your sheikhers and you're drinking in bayis shel nachri, or maybe be'emes he's giving you his sheikher and he's telling you it's your sheikher. That's also usher. It's hard to understand. Halacha Yud Aleph Yiroeli Shekol Mokim Shamaynu B'Inyan Zeh B'Yayin Shalonu Shu Aser B'Shtiya Umuter B'Hanoah B'Misad Negia Shenoga B'Hakum. We learned Moshe if you touch the wine Shalei B'Kavona, or you were mitapeach on you to take out the zvuv or to take out the tzira, whatever. We learned these halachas where it becomes only aser b'shtia and it's muter b'hanoah. But there was no inyan of nisuch. Is that whole din that it's aser b'shtia umuter b'hanoah is only kshahoya akum eved avodah zarah. The guy was be'emes and eved avodah zarah, and lepel he touched it be'efen that there was no kshash nisuch. So then there's aser b'shtia and muter b'hanoah. Avalim hoyi isure b'glal akum she'ein eved avodah zarah. We're talking about a guy that's mochatchila not an eved avodah zarah. Kigen Yishmaeli. Shenoga b'yayin shalonu shlei b'kavona eshetipach al pi achavis. So in those cases where he said before that it's only aser b'shtia muter b'hanoah, so he says, when is it aser b'shtia muter b'hanoah? When we're talking about an eved avodah zarah, and since he didn't do it b'kavona, so memela it's only aser b'shtia. Mashengen over here, when we're talking about he say a guy which is not an eved avodah zarah, and say he did a shlei b'kavona, so the Ram says the Yeroli is areza muter b'shtia, so it becomes even muter b'shtia. V'chein kol kiyetzbus, which not everyone agrees to this Ram. This is machlek Sarishain. But the Ram says the Yeroli that if it's a goy that which is be'etzim not an eved avodah zarah, so male and he touched the yayin shlei b'kavana, so b'chiyah gavna, so it's like so nachsino lekula. So there's two kulas. Side that he's not an eved avodah zarah, and side that he touches shlei b'kavana, so b'chiyah gavna, it's even muter b'shtia. That's talking about when he touched the wine that was biyad Yisrael. Aval hamafkid yayin b'gertesha. So b'neged the din of touching wine, he touched the wine, the efen, that he wasn't mechavan l'nasach, he was shlei b'kavana, or is for another reason, or knows to take away the para that was coming up. So b'efen, because there's a difference if we're dealing with a goy that's an eved avodah zarah or a goy that's not an eved avodah zarah. If it's an eved avodah zarah, he asks it b'shtia. And if he's not an eved avodah zarah, it doesn't even ask b'shtia. But b'negei aval hamafkid yayin b'yad gertesha. He gave a gertesh of wine, his wine. A shesholchim, he knows the wine was the gertesh was transporting the wine from him v'hiflig, and he went away further from him. And over there we said that since he went away further, so there's a chash of yayin esach. So be'emes, before we were talking about a chash that he might open the barrel and put it and close it. This is all nisach. We're talking about someone that's not a Neivad Avodah Zarah. So l'chura, he's not going to be menasich the wine. So someone that's mafkid yain biad gerteshav, eshe sholchi me vehiflik, eshe niach besi pasuach bechatzar gerteshav. In all these cases, there was l'chura chash of nisuch, and l'chura we're talking about a gerteshav where there's no chash nisuch. But from deswegen, since it's b'rshus of the goy, something that's already b'rshus of the goy, and there's a chash chiluf. So even if there's not really such a chash chiluf, nevertheless, once it became b'rshus akum, is areza osur b'shtir. You're not allowed to drink it. Shekol chash chiluf v'ziyuf, any chash of a chiluf or a ziyuf, is yiroyli shekol akum shavim beit. Hail v'nasa hayayin b'rshusam, nesa b'shtir al kol panim. It's a little hard to understand. In other words, when you're talking about chash chiluf, you understand. You're afraid. You know, the guy has the wine, and we're afraid maybe he switched it for other wine, which is asur, because his wine is asur b'shtia. A wine of a ger teshuv is also asur b'shtia. Or stam yenim of a ger teshuv is asur b'shtia. It's not asur b'ano, but it's asur b'shtia. But when there's a chash of ziyuf, l'chura, the chash of ziyuf is because of the chash of nisuch. L'chura, where there was no nisuch. But al kol part of the Rambam learns that that's considered a blanket gzeira. We said any goy that had access to the Yiddish wine, if he had access to the Yiddish wine and there's a chash of chiluf iziyuf, so then since it was like nase b'rshusam, so therefore it's considered asur midrabanan. So it's nachamol. A ger teshuv or a yishmeili that there's no chash of nisuch, so when he touches it shalei b'kavana, it's mutter. Masha ein kein. If it's b'rshusei, in other words, it's berchatzerei or it's bershusei, and he has it, and he's far away from the yid, and memela there's a chash that he could be menasech, even though he's not going to be menasech, but it's already bershusei to be menasech. So the mere fact that it's bershus hagoy, that's in itself an isur. Halacha yud gimel. Yesh dvarim she'ein behem isur nisach klal. Aber v'osru esem chacham kedei laharchik min hanisach. Ve'elu hein. The Yid is holding the wine, and the guy is pouring water into that wine. There's no problem. He's not doing anything. Because we're afraid there'll be fakir, that'll pour the wine into the water. And also, he's bringing the grapes to the gas, to the place where you fetch the grapes. Why? Because we're afraid that he may end up fetching the grapes. And also, the Yid is pouring from one keli to another keli wine, and the guy is helping him a little bit. He's touching the keli a little bit. He's helping him a little. So, but on the pale, there's a concern. So, the Rambam is saying three gzeiros. One, for a guy to pour water into the Yid's wine. Another inyan is for a guy to bring the grapes to the gas. And another of helping the Yid pour the keli, the wine from one keli to another keli. However, so he shouldn't do these things. If he didn't listen and he did do it, so it's mutter, so that doesn't answer anything, but l'chatchila you shouldn't do it. Halacha yudalad. V'chein mutter she'yariach ha'akum. I don't know what the word v'chein is, because before the Rambam was saying that there are things that it's not be'emes asur, but the Chacham answered, but b'di'evet, if he did it, it's mutter. Now that I'm saying v'chein mutter, I mean over here v'chein mutter she'yariach ha'akum b'chav shel yayin shalanu. That's mutter. No, there's no chash. There's no chash that by smelling the chavius he'll come to touch the wine. It's mutter she'yariach ha'akum b'chav shel yayin shalanu. That's din number one. Now there's another din. Mutter li Yisrael l'chur. It's unrelated, these two dinim. Mutter li Yisrael l'hariach b'chav shel yayin esach v'ein b'zeh shum isur. What would be the issue? The issue would be nana from yain nesach. She'ein hareach klum, lefi she'ein ben mamish. Maybe the pashtus it sounds like since the reach is ein hareach klum, she'ein ben mamish. So therefore, there's no issue of being nana from a reach that's coming from something which is asur bano. But the mice is the Rambam and other places, the Rambam Hilchos Brachos they bring. The Mishnah asks that lechur over there. The Rambam says clearly asur l'reach b'psamim shalakum. You're not allowed to be miriach b'psamim shalakum. So l'chura, why is the Rambam saying over here? Since ain't a reach klum, ain't be mamish, but l'chura sof kol sof. If it's something is asur bano, it's asur l'reach. It's asur l'reach. So on that, the Mishnah answers that be'emes the reach of yayin is mazik leguf, and that's really why the reason is mutal reach. If that's the case, so why does the Ram add l'fisha ein mamish? Because be'emes, if lepel reach would be mamish, even though sof kol sof it's mazik, but lepel since he's having anoah and it's nichnas lahaguf, so therefore it would be also. So therefore you have to come on to both in your side that it's lepel, it's mazik the guf, and side it's ein mamish. The shaila is only. That's what the Lech Mishnah says pshat and Rambam. The problem is the Rambam doesn't say it. The Rambam just says that the reason is ein b'sham esush ein areach klum. V'shein b'mamish. L'chura doesn't say what the Lech Mishnah says. It's a different word. L'chura. All right. Halacha tezvav. Kol kvar b'yarnu shekol davar. This was already said in Hilchas Ishus. B'negei b'mekadosh isha with klipi yisuri ano. Shekol davar shu aseb ano. Im avar u'mocher dam of mutar. The dam is mutar. We mentioned already. The machlekes rishenim if lechatchila you're allowed to use the dam. There's a Rashi in Chulin that says that lechatchila you're not supposed to use the dam because it's, since by using the dam you're being nana from yisuri ano. It's just b'diavad. If you lepel mekadosh isha with the dam, so lepel the isha is mukudeshes because it's not a cheftz of the yisura. But lepel the Ram Loshna Rambam is and other rishenim. Tesis in the beginning of Kol Shah says that dam of mutarim, kol davar shu aseb anoim over mochrei dam of mutarim, chutz miakum u'mishamsheh v'tikrei v'shalo, and also v'yayin shenesnasechlo. This is avodah zarah, or mishamshi avodah zarah, or takrevis avodah zarah, yayin nesach. So over there, lepel, if a person sells these items and he gets money for it, so the money is also aser bano. That's on a derisidical level. On a derisidical level that avodah zarah lidbak biyotchem u'umim and acherim, we learn out that everything is aser. And bechmiru chachamim b'stam yenom liyizdam of asurim kidmei yayin shnesnasach lakum. Even though stam yenom is the only aser midrabanan, so the chur it's aser bano midrabanan. So the chur there would be a svara that chalipe of stam yenom should be mutter. But nevertheless, no, the Chacham gave a din of Stam Yenom that it should also have a din, that Dom of Asurim, like Kidmei Yayin Shnesnasach La'akum. Lefichoch, so comes out Nacha Chidusha. Akum, Shesocher Es Yisrael, Lasis Imid Bayayin. He's not really getting the Dmei of the Avodah Zarah. What's happening over here is the Yid is working for the Goy and working and doing something with his Yayin Nesach. He's delivering, he's transporting his Yayin Nesach. So he's working for the Goy. So lepel, the Yid is being nana, he's getting paid for doing work with the Yayin Nesach. So that money is aser bano. So it's chari aser. So stam things that are aser bano. If you work with isuri ano, you get paid for it. That wouldn't make the money into aser bano. Masha'in came over here by stam yenam even. Socher is Yisrael lasis ime bayayin. So the din is charios. So the schar, the wages that he gets paid for working with the yayin nesach is aser bano. Halacha tezayin v'chein hasoicher es hachamer lahavi olav yayin. A guy comes to a yid, he wants to rent his donkey in order to transport on it wine, his stam yenam. Isha sacher svina lahavi bem yayin. So the din is schar and aser. So what he's paying for this donkey. The sof kol sof, since he's renting this donkey in order to transport yayin nesach, that's considered that he's being nana, the dmei of yayin nesach. The dmei of yayin nesach is not only the money if you go ahead and sell yayin nesach. If you go ahead and sell yayin nesach, so the money that you receive for the sale, that's considered dmei yayin nesach. Then if you go ahead and work with yayin nesach for the goy, so the money, the wages that you're getting received is also considered dmei yayin nesach. Here we're saying furthermore, if the guy rents a vehicle, he rents a chamer, he rents a svina, in order to transport yayin nesach. So it's clearly that's what the interest is. He says that, and now you're getting paid for that vehicle. You're getting paid for that vehicle. What's the difference? What he did with it? But Lepel, he made it clear that the purpose of renting this vehicle is in order, or this chamer or this svina is in order to transport yayin nesach. So that's called that you're being nana for the may of yayin nesach, and may let's also is a moist nos is. So the din is chor and aser. If moist nosnu lei, so what should he do? Yelichem liyam hamelech. He should throw it into the yam hamelech. V'im nosnu lei b'schorei ksuse kelim, he paid it. So he didn't pay him money, but he paid him an item piece of clothes, kalim or peiris, is as it is a Yisrael face. He should go ahead and burn the item that he received for the payment for this vehicle, for this chamer or whatever, and the yigber ha'efer, kedei shalei lihanisben, in order not to be nana. So, much if a person's renting, he's renting trucks, and a company comes, he wants to rent from him a truck in order to be able to transport wine, geisha wine. So there would be a shayla. In other words, he's getting paid for renting a truck, which is the purpose of the truck. The company is a company that sells wine, so they need the truck to transport wine. I mean, the shayla is bisman, if the wine is bamis aser bano, because most goyim aren't really evdi avodah zarah. Some goyim aren't evdi avodah zarah. That's another issue. Halacha Yud Zayin. Socher la'akum chamer lirkev olav, v'iniach olav lugn shel yain. He rented him the chamer in order for him to ride on it. Lepel, he put lugn shel yain on it. So the din is chari mutter because he didn't rent it to him for the yain nesach. He rented it for himself, and there's no problem. The fact that he put lugn shel yain doesn't in any ways change the fact that the money that he paid for renting the chamer is still mutter. Now schari l'shaber kadi yain nesach. He rented him not to work with wine. In the earlier things, he rented him to transport the wine or to produce the wine. And since it's stam yenam, so memela, so the stam yenam is aser bano, and the schar that he gets for working with it is also aser bano. Over here, the schar is not for producing it or transporting it. Fakert, the schar is for destroying it. In those, the guy wants that to get rid of his yain nesach. So memela, he hired this year to get rid of his yain nesach. Sachrei l'shaber kada yain nesach, to go ahead and break those jars that had yain nesach. So over here is fakert. Over here is chari muti. Even though the chura sof kol sof, he's having hano from yain nesach, but the hano is from breaking the yain nesach. So b'chiyah gavnetz muti and nachmer v'tovei elav bracha mipnei shemamayit betiflo. Through that, he's causing that the yain nesach should no longer exist. So that's a maila. So in maila, there's no isser on that wine. That isser on that wine, there wouldn't be an isser. There's no isser on that wine. And this isser, the bechlal on the money that he's getting from being paid, is not a isser deiraisa. It's not a isser deiraisa. And that didn't over here when he's mimayit betifla fakert. It's a mile. And knows if he asked not only b'di'ah, but if he did it, it's mutter. But l'chatchila he could allow to do it. There's another shaila later on. We're going to learn that when a person is interested b'kiyumei of something that's asur bano of the avodah zarah, so that also is a reasonably isser. We'll learn that b'hamshach. So over here, he's also l'chura reitze b'kiyumi. He was hired to break the kadi yain nesach. Now he's interested the kadi yain nesach to be complete, to be whole, because if they're not going to be whole and they'll be broken, they don't need him to work. So l'chura is a reitze b'kiyumi. So the chiddush is that even though he's a reitze b'kiyumi and he's getting paid from something which is a reitze b'kiyumi, nevertheless the schar is mutter. That's the chiddush. Halacha Yudches. Hasechres apel. Va'amrli haverli meya. This says we're talking about a guy hired a yid. Va'amrli haverli meya chavi shel shecher b'meya prutas. I have 100 barrels, and I'll give you 100 prutas for bringing these 100 barrels. So he didn't say a pruta per barrel. He just said 100 barrels for 100 prutas. And and one of those barrels ended up being wine. So it's schari kuli asa. So the whole schar is asa. Why? Because the deal was that you'll bring the 100 barrels for the 100 prutas. So if you don't bring all 100, you're not going to get any of the 100. It's not pshat, I'm going to give you one per barrel. If you bring me the 100 barrels, I'll give you the 100 prutas. And since one of those barrels is avodah zarah, so Mamela, I'm working with yain nesach rather. So since I'm working with yain nesach, and that has enabled me to get all of the 100 prutas, so all of the 100 prutas are seen as being demei avodah zarah, demei yain nesach. Because Nachamal, the deal was that for the 100 barrels, I'll give you 100 prutas. If you do 99 barrels, I'll owe you nothing. So why do I owe you the 100 prutas? Because ultimately you did all 100. And one of those 100 is yain nesach. So it comes out that the 100 prutas is for the yain nesach. But the yain nesach, without the yain nesach, you won't have the 100 prutas. So all 100 prutas is also. That's if he made up a deal, a general deal, 100 barrels for 100 prutas. However, amalei, havali chavis bepruta. He made up clearly that each barrel I'm paying you a pruta. And vehaver, he brought those barrels. And v'nimtza b'neim chavi shel yayin, amongst the barrels that he brought, there were also barrels of wine, which were yayin stam yainam. So the din is schar chavi shel yayin aser. For those barrels, to take a pruta for those barrels is aser, because he's getting paid for yisuri anoah. Since each barrel is entitled to a pruta, so let's say if there was 100 barrels and 10 of them were yayin, so Mimele he's only allowed to take 90 prutas. He's only allowed to take 90 prutas from the guy. But the 90 prutas is allowed to take. Masha'enkin, in the first case, he wasn't allowed to take any prutas from the guy, because all the prutas are coming for all 100. And since one of those 100 was yayin esach, so it comes out that all 100 prutas are coming for the yayin esach. Halacha chof. Umne Yisrael shesholach lehem akub chavish shel yayin b'scharim. Someone worked for a guy, and the guy owes him money. He has to pay him for the job, and he sent him a barrel of wine. So mutter shiyem relay. So that even though he sent the barrel of wine, they could go back. They could turn to him and say, "Listen, we're not interested in this barrel of wine as payment. 10 lonas domel. I want to get paid for it. In other words, I want the payment. How much the barrel of wine is worth? Because not pshat. I'm selling you the barrel of wine, and I'm asking you to pay me for the barrel of wine. The pshat is, I'm telling you, milchatchila, I'm not accepting the barrel of wine of a payment. I want to get money as a payment. However, if they already received the barrel of wine, the barrel of wine is already bershusam, so in Mele Kilo, they got paid already. And now they're saying, instead of the barrel of wine, I'm going to give you back the barrel of wine, and you give me money instead. So then pshat is, we're selling you it. It comes out that the woman is going ahead and selling this barrel of wine to the person that they worked for in exchange for money. That's not allowed to. You're not allowed to sell and get paid for it. They could only exchange it if it wasn't yet, they didn't yet acquire it. It wasn't yet in their possession. Halacha chafalef. Yisrael shoyanesha ba'akum. A guy owes a yid mana. And halacha akum, umocher akum, v'yayin nesach, v'hevel edmeim. So the yid knows that the guy didn't have the money. He went ahead and he sold his avodah zarah, he sold his yayin nesach, or his yayin stam, yayin nesach, and he went and he brought the money. So the din is that the money of yayin nesach, or the money of avodah zarah, if a yid sells avodah zarah and he gets money for it, so that money is asur. Masha'enkin, if a guy sells his yayin nesach, or a guy sells his avodah zarah and he gets money for it, that money is not asur. That's the din. So in Mela, the yid came along and told the guy that he needs the money, and then he knows that the guy went ahead. He knows that the guy got the money through selling avodah zarah or selling yayin nesach. So from that's it's mutter. However, if before he sold it, he told him, "Hamtnuli acheemker akim ayayin nesach sheyeshli ve'avi lecha." No, it says like this: the yid comes to the guy and says, "You owe me money." The guy says, I don't have any money, but I have avodah zarah, I have yayin nesach. I'm going to go and sell it. And when I get the money for it, I will come back and give you the money. So l'chure over here, again, we said that the may yayin nesach, the may avodah zarah of a guy is not asur bano, that a guy sold. But on the other hand, before the guy sold it, the yid was roitze b'kiyumid. That since the yid wanted that this avodah zarah, this yayin nesach should exist, because if it's not going to exist, he's not going to get paid for it. Whereas this yid needs money. He wants money from the guy. Now this guy has this yayin nesach, and he's going to get money for the yayin nesach. So for the guy to get money for the yayin nesach is not a yisr, and the money that he got for the yayin nesach is also not a yisr. But since the yid is roitze b'kiyume of this yayin nesach, so memela the money that he got for the yayin nesach is also us. That's the chura did it. So aval pishu stam yain, not only yain nesach, aval pishu stam yain. Umachar vehevi le ariza aser. Why? Mipnei shayisraeli reitze b'kiyume kedei sheyapara mimenu cheva. The yid was interested. And since the yid knew that the guy didn't have money and that the guy is going to sell this yain nesach or this avodah zarah in order to obtain money to give to the yid, so at that point in time, the yid wanted that this yain nesach should be in existence. So yain nesach or that the yid wanted should be in existence, and then he got money for the yayin nesach. That's the pshat, because he got money for this yayin nesach, which he was reitze b'kiyume. So b'chiyai gavna, so the money that he gets for it is us, is nachamol. When a yid goes to a guy and he tells the guy, I want money. And he knows that the guy got the money by selling Yain Nesach or by selling David Zara, it's not a problem. Masha'enkin, if the guy says, I don't have any money, wait, and I'll go ahead and sell the Yain Nesach, I'll sell David Zara. So at that point in time, the Yid is the Charetze B'Kiyumei. So since he's Charetze B'Kiyumei, so Memela, when he gets the money for this David Zara, he's not allowed to use that money. That's the V'chein. Now, Ger va'akum shahoyu shutfim. There was a Yid and a Goy was shutfim. It says a Ger va'akum. It's not a Ger. The Iker is that a Yid and a Goy was shutfim. Ubo lachlik. And now they're coming to divide their shutfim. So they own things b'shutfis. Now, Eina Ger yochel lema la'akum tul ata akum v'ani mois. Ata yain v'ani peres. Why? Shaharei reitze b'kiyuma. Because he's reitze b'kiyuma. What's actually his reitze b'kiyuma? Knows we're dividing it. So I want this, the Yid wants the David Zara or the Yain Nesach to exist, because or else he's not going to be able to take in this exchange what he wants to take. There's payers over there, there's things there that are not David Zara and not Yain Nesach. And there are things that are David Zara, Yain Nesach. So he's telling the guy, you take David Zara and the Yain Nesach, and I'll take the other things. Now he's interested in the David Zara and the Yain Nesach to be in existence, for the guy to take it. Or else he's not going to be able to take the other things. So Memela, since it's a Reitze B'Kiyumei, if it's a Reitze B'Kiyumei, so Memela it's also. That's what he's saying. So nu did. Nochamo. V'chein ger va'akum, show you shutfim. They were shutfim. Ubo lachlik. So the din is, Eina ger, yochel lema la'akum, tul ata akum, v'ani mois, or ata yayin, v'ani peres. Why? Shahari Reitze B'Kiyumen. He's Reitze B'Kiyumen. Kadeshi Yitul connector. In order for him to take the connector. In other words, the guy is going to take the yayin, he's going to take the peiros. The guy is going to take the David Zara, and he's going to take the mois. So mainly he's Reitze B'Kiyumen of the David Zara. Now the kasha over here is, it brings from Gilya Mashah, from Rabbi Shlomo Eiger, the Lechura, what do you have to come on to Reitze B'Kiyumen? Reitze B'Kiyumen is a case where the guy is selling it and the guy got money for it, so then there's a din of Reitze B'Kiyumen. Masha'enkin over here is the Chalipi Avidah Zara. The guy and the ger own everything together. And now he's going ahead and saying, listen, I'm going to take this and you'll take that. So why am I taking all of this? Because I'm selling you my part in that. In other words, we both own something in the Avidah Zara. We both own something in the other Paris. And Memela, I'm saying, give me your chelik in the Paris, and I'll give you my chelik in Avidah Zara. So it's mamish chalipi Avidah Zara. What do we need? The din of Reitze B'Kiyumen is talking about when a guy is selling it. So then there's a psayin called chalipi Avidah Zara. I mean, a Reitze B'Kiyumen. So even though the guy sold it, so if the guy sold it before the Yid was involved, so it's beseder. The money is beseder. But if the Yid was aware that the guy is about to sell it, so there's a din called Reitze B'Kiyumen, and that asks. But over here, the ger and the goy are mamish shutfim. So l'chura, it's more than Reitze B'Kiyumen. Over here, it's mamish chalipi Avidah Zara. That's the kasher b'kiveger, the Reb Shlomo Eiger is. So he brings over here the Ram Or brings from the Rogat Shover that he says that it's not considered chalipi Avidah Zara. Why? Because l'chatchila the shutfis ul adas that he's going to take the chelik, this chelik, and this he's going to take this chelik. So Mele, it's not considered chalipi Avidah Zara. It's not considered chalipi Avidah Zara because it was kilo al dazeh was the chalukah, was the shutfis mochatchila that he should only get this chelik. That's what he brings from the Rogat Shover. But l'chura still you have to understand because memanav shach. If it's not chalipi Avidah Zara, so why is Reitze B'Kiyumei a problem? Reitze B'Kiyumei is only a problem over here. L'mashal, in the case by the guy. The guy went ahead and he sold the Avidah Zara. So since you're a Reitze B'Kiyumei of that Avidah Zara, of that Yain Nesach, so the money which he obtained for this Yain Nesach or for the Avidah Zara is also asur on you because it was an Avidah Zara which you were a Reitze B'Kiyumei. But over here, you attack a Reitze B'Kiyumei. But did you get this for that? You have to understand how it works exactly. In other words, manav shach. If this is chalipi, if what you're getting, the Yid is getting, is chalipi of what he's giving to the guy, so you don't need a Reitze B'Kiyumei. Without a Reitze B'Kiyumei, it's also awesome. Elamai, you're saying it's not a chalipi. So notice he's getting his chelik and he's getting his chelik. And rather, he was interested in B'Kiyumei because if he wouldn't have been interested in B'Kiyumei, he wouldn't have gotten his chelik. True. he was taka interested in bikumis. Maybe it was psa'avl that he was interested in bikum. I'm not sure. But how does that make this into chalipi of that? Because it's either chalipi or it's not chalipi. If it's chalipi, it should be a problem even when we're not interested in bikum. And if it's not chalipi, I'm not sure I understand why a reitza b'kiyumi is going to make it into an iser. It's soft of it. Maybe it is chalipe. It's a little bit chalipe. Yeah, it needs beer a little bit. I'll call on Rav Shlomo asked the kasha. L'chura, what do I need to do? Reitza b'kiyumi. L'chura, it's a problem because it's chalipe. Let's read halacha again. Halacha chav beis. V'chein ger va'akum shehoyu shutfim ubo lachlik. Is eina ger yochalei malakum tul ata akum vani mois ata yain vani peres. Why? Shari reitze b'kiyuman. His reitze b'kiyuman of the yain or of the akum of David Zara kidei sheyitul kenegdam and memela. So therefore, when he's a reitze b'kiyuman kidei sheyitul kenegdam causes that what he's yitul kenegdam is awesome. So what sheyitul kenegdam is awesome. There's l'churi, you have to say pshat that normally yitul kenegdam be'etzim shouldn't be us. Just like over there, when the guy sells it, it really shouldn't be us, because but since when the yid is a reitze b'kiyuman, so what the guy gets for it is usher. So al derez over here, since the yid is a reitze b'kiyumi of that avodah zarah, which is going beyond the akum, so memela what he's getting in its stead, even though be'etzim it's not really chalipe, from this we can say. That's how you have to say pshat. Avol, that's been a ger va'akum which was shutfus. What about a ger va'akum sheyorshu saviyam akum? A ger and a goy that yashin their father. Now, if they would be emes, a ger would be emes yashin his father. Because a goy yashins his father. But the question is, if the ger would also be a emes yerish menatera, so it would come out that all of the money belongs to both of them. And since all of the money belongs to both of them, so Memele, he wouldn't be able to say, Tul atazeh, and I'll take this. Because Lepel, since it belongs to both of them, it's considered Chalipi Avodah Zarah. It would be considered Chalipi Avodah Zarah. You can't say like by Shutfas. By Shutfas, you can say, Adaita Dohachi was the Shutfas. But over here, by Yerusha Pastasnish. And also, there's a musik called Breira, but the Rabbanan, Yesh Breira. So the Chura Yain Nesach is only, Stam Yenim is only Isu the Rabbanan. So it's brought, and he also brings down, the Ramara brings down, that the whole musig of Breira is only when you divide the same item. You have a lot of the same item, and one person takes part of that item. The other one takes the other part of that item. So Pasazog, Yesh Breira, that's Hoover Radover, that this was my item al Chatchila. But when you're taking one item and I'm taking another item, the whole musig of Breira doesn't apply. There's no musig of Breira. You can't say Hoover Radover Mafreya. So then it's Mamish Chalipe. So if Nachma, let's just look again. A ger and a goy yashin their father. So the emes is a ger min haTorah doesn't yashin his father, because since a gershin is gayer, kikot nishanei ladami, he doesn't yashin his father. It's only the whole idea that a ger yashins his father is only on a derabbanadika level. Now, if he would have yashined on a deraisadika level, so that wouldn't have helped, because that would have been considered already nichnas b'rshusei, and since it was a nichnas b'rshusei, so Mamela, he can't make any deals. It would be considered chalipe avodah zarah, chalipe yainasa. Masha'inkin, since be'etzem minatera, he doesn't yashin. It's only with the Rabbanah. The Rabbanah said he should yashin. So Mamela, it's hey mamru v'hei mamru. They said that it's ki'ilu was late nichnasul reshusei, and therefore he could yashin only the heter dikapat, not the isur dikapat. That's what we're saying here. Avol ger va'akum shiyorshu saviyam akum is yochel leimalei. So the ger can say to the goy, tul ata akum. You take the avodah zarah, you take the getchke, vani mois, ata yayin, vani shemen. It's kalu shehikilu b'Yerushas hager. Even though the chura is a reitze b'kiyumei, and nevertheless it's a kula shehikilu b'Yerushas hager. Kedei sheyachzor l'surei. And the reason why they were able to make this kula is because muchatchila, the gather of Yerusha of a ger from his father, the goy, is only a drabban. However, v'imishabo l'Yerushas hager, once the ger already takes possession, and he realizes that part of what he has is Asr Bano, he can't go back to his brother. That his brother, which Alpidin is not his brother's, but biologically it's his brother. He can't go back to his brother and say, take this and I'll take something else in exchange. Because then that's considered Mamish, Chalipi Avodah Zarah. The Imish Abol Shusager is Asr. Halacha Chav Gimel. Yisrael Shemocher Yeni Lakum. A Yid is selling his wine to a guy. Now, there's nothing wrong with a Yid selling his wine to a Goy. The problem is that if the Yid is going to sell the wine to the Goy, and the Goy is going to have the wine before it's actually really his, so at that point in time, when the Goy is going to take hold of this wine, it'll become Yain Nesach or Akopon Stam Yeno. And since it still belongs to the Yid, so now when the transaction is going to finish off, it's going to come out that the Yid is selling the Goy Yain, which has a din of Yain Nesach or Stam Yeno. In other words, if it didn't become the Goy's before it became Yain Nesach, so it comes out that the Yid is basically selling the Goy Yain Nesach. So we're talking about here in the first case, Allah of Gimel, the Yid is selling the Goy wine in the Yid's keli. So the Yid has a measuring cup, it's his keli, and now he's giving it to the Goy. Now the question is, did we make up a price? Was the price clearly made up how much the price for the wine is? So if the price was made up already, so Mela, it's very clear how much you're going to pay for this wine. So now when the Yid gives the Goy the wine, the Goy is making a Maisa Kinyan on the wine because he's taking the wine. So at that point in time, the Goy right away owes the Yid the money. Even though he didn't pay him yet, but he already owes him the money. And since he already owes him the money, so even though once the Goy has the wine, so he's going to make it into Yain Nesach, but Lepel, he owes the Yid the money for the wine that the Yid gave him. And when the Yid gave him the wine, it wasn't Yain Nesach, so there's no problem. But Masha'enkin, if the Yid is going to give the Goy the wine, and at that point in time, the wine is not really the Goy's, why not? Because let's say they didn't make up clearly a price. So even though the Yid gave the Goy the wine, and the Goy made a Maisa Kinyan on the wine, made Mashicha, Abulepel, since there was no clear upmach of how much the price of the wine is going to be, so the Goy is not sure that he's buying it. It's not. There's no smichas das of the Kana. He's not really sure he's buying it, because if the price will be an exaggerated price, so he's not going to buy it. So he's not really sure he bought it. So at that point in time, when the Goy is holding this wine, which the Yid gave it to him, so it's not really the Goy's. It's not yet the Goy's, because we're not really sure that he bought it. But Lepel, since he's holding it and has shakeltis, so Memel it's considered Yain Nesach. So if it's Yain Nesach, so now there's wine that belongs to the Yid, that's Yain Nesach, Biyad Goy, and now when they make up that they tell him the price and they agree to pay, so the Goy ends up paying for the money, but he's paying for Yain Nesach that was already Yain Nesach. In other words, before the sale was finished off, was concluded, so the wine became Yain Nesach. So mainly he's getting paid for Yain Nesach. So you have to make sure that it should be a sale before it managed to become Yain Nesach. That's this different. Halacha Chavgim. Yisrael shemachar yenilak. A Yid is selling his wine to the Goy. Is Pasak actually modadli? If he made up the price clearly before he gave him the wine, before it was modadli. So the din is dam of mutarim. The money that the Goy is going to give the Yid is going to be mutar. Why? Shemisha Pasak, since they made up a price, as some chadaita, so there was already a smichas das of the Goy that he wants to be kainet, whereas in his mind he wants to be kainet. And therefore, Mishamashach, as soon as he made a Mashicha on the wine, which was Bekela of Shel Yisrael, as we're going to learn, is Kana. And Veyayin Nesach Ein Nasa, when is this wine? So when he was Kainet, there wasn't Yayin Nesach. And Veyayin Nesach Ein Nasa, when is it going to become Yayin Nesach? Achi Yigabe. Is Nimsa B'Shas Mechira Hayamutter. B'Shas Mechira, he sold him good wine, not Yayin Nesach. And for that wine, the guy owes him the money, and everything's beside. However, modedly actually pasik adamim, if he measured from means he put it into his measuring cup, into the Yid's measuring cup, and they didn't yet make up a price how much the wine is going to cost, and he gave it to the guy. So the din is now when the guy is going to pay for that wine is damam asurim. Why? Sharili some chadaitik. The guy didn't really have smichas das that he's really going to buy this wine. Aval bishamoshach. Even though he made a mashich on the wine, but the wine didn't become his, because he wasn't really sure he's buying it. He wasn't sure of the price yet. So at that point in time, he didn't know the price. When the guy touched this wine, which he was mashach, and since it was late pasak, so Mela wasn't his adayli som chadai telikach. It wasn't clear that he's buying it. And v'neser haryayin b'nigiyoseh. So when he touched the wine becomes yayin neser. And v'arezeh k'mecher stam yenim. So it's like he's touching, like he's selling him stam yenim. In other words, a yid can't sell stam yayin to a guy. Now he's selling his own wine. It's not stam yayin. It's a Yid's wine. But the question is, when is the sale taking place? If the sale takes place as soon as the guy gets it, so Mamela, he's selling kosher wine to the guy, and for that the guy owes him money. But if the sale really takes place after the guy already took possession of it, because Lepel, there was no yet posek, they didn't make up a price. So when is the sale taking place? After the guy already touched it. So now what's he selling him? He's selling wine that the guy already touched. So for wine that the guy already touched, he's now there to take money. So maybe that would be a problem. But Medvar Mamurim, when does it help? That he was posak, actually modat, even though he didn't get the money yet. But as long as it was posak, actually modat, it's talking about B'Shamodet HaYisraeli Lekelov. So Memela, it didn't become Yain Nesach until the guy, after the guy made the kinyan. It didn't become Yain Nesach until after the guy made the kinyan. And since the guy made the kinyan and there was a smichas das, so it became the guy's Yain, and the guy right away for the kinyan owes him the money. So Memela, the money he owes for kosher wine. Because the Maisa kinyan was made on kosher wine, because it was Bekelev Shel Yisrael. If he poured lechatchila into a goy's keli, in other words, the yid pours his wine into the goy's keli, or lekeli Yisrael shebiyadakum, or to a keli Yisrael shebiyadakum. So the mice is, as soon as he's pouring it into that keli, the wine is becoming yain nesach. The wine is becoming yain nesach as soon as he's pouring it into the keli. So when the guy is being koined, what's he being koined? He's being koined yain nesach. He was never koined kosher wine. He was koinim l'chatchila yain nesach, and Memela, when he's going to pay for it, he's going to pay for the yain nesach that he received. So Memela, the only eitz over here is going to be is that he should pay for the wine before it's poured in. So Memela, it comes out it's kilu. He paid for the wine that was biyad Yisrael. Since he paid for the wine that was biyad Yisrael, so Memela, so that's no problem. Masha'enkin, if he didn't pay for the wine, so he's paying for the wine which he already received. And that wine that he received, he was, as soon as he received it, it was yain nesach. So in the other case over there, he received the wine, which was kosher wine, because it was bekelev shel Yisrael. And so he received mamish kosher wine. For that kosher wine, he became mechuyev money. Later on, he made it yain nesach. That's his business. Masha'enkin over here, he never really received kosher wine. As soon as the wine went into his keli, it was yain nesach. So what's he paying for? He's paying for yain nesach. So for that, he can't pay for yain nesach unless he paid for it before. And if he paid for it before, so we're saying that the money that he paid for is already, it belongs to the Yisrael already. That's money that belongs already to the Yisrael, and the Yid has to give him the wine. So Memela is considered, that's an issue in Gemara, whether or not that money that he gave him is b'chinas b'kodem. So the Rambam is saying, no, the money that he gave him to him is already the Yid's, and Kilu, he already paid for the wine. So Mela, the fact that the wine becomes yain nesach as soon as it hits his keli doesn't change it. Mela, it's still mutter. Allah chavdal. Medvar mamurim that there's this heter of pasuk actually modad b'shemodad ha'Yisraeli lekelev. When we're talking about the yid put it into his own kelev. Avle modad lekeli ya'akum elekli Yisrael should be yadakum. So in other words, the yid is pouring it into the goy's keli, which the goy's keli has some residue of yain nesach, or stam yainam, or to the Kli Yisrael should be ad akum. So when the akum is holding it and he's moving the keli, so right away as soon as it comes into the keli as a din of stam yainam, is over here the eitz is not the pasuk actually mother. Over here sarach likach zadomim. First you have to take the money and then you measure it into the goy's keli. However, if you didn't do that, you first measured it into the goy's keli and you didn't get paid yet. Is aval pisha pasuk, even though you made up a price, from the dam of Asuros, shemishi agia lekeli is nesek estam yenim. So the guy never really got kosher wine, which he was nischai for money. He got right away the money that the wine that he got was always not kosher wine. So mainly you can't take money for the not kosher wine that he received. Halacha chafei hanoisen dinner lechen v'niyakum. A person he has to feed his workers, or he owes them money, and he's going to pay them by feeding them. So he goes over to a chen v'niyakum, to a goy. V'amar lepei ha'akum, and he tells his goyish worker, Lech ushsei ve'echel me'anachem v'ni. Go ahead and eat in this restaurant or in this chen v'ni. V'ani mechashiv lei, and I'll make a cheshbon for him. So the problem is azay. If he gives the money to the chen v'ni before they come in, So the question is, in other words, if it's pashut, that if a yid will go into a store that sells yain nesach, and he'll buy for them a cup of yain nesach with money, and then he'll give it to his worker to drink. So he's not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to buy yain nesach. You're not allowed to buy yain nesach, and you're not allowed to give yain nesach to your worker as a payment. So you're not allowed to buy yain nesach. You're not mishtamish yain nesach. So now the question is, now he's telling his goyish worker to go into a goyish store, and in the goyish store, his goyish worker is going to take yain nesach. So the question is, what happened? If he paid the store before the goy came in, so Mela comes out, you could look at it, that Keilu, whatever the goy is going to give his worker, it's already his, because he already paid for it. It's Keilu, he bought it. So it's Keilu, like Keilu, he bought that glass of wine, and he is giving that glass of wine, or the Chavani is giving Bishlichusi, that glass of wine, which he bought to his worker, which is certainly Yasser. It has to be if the guy gives the worker a glass of wine, and then he ends up later on paying for what he did. So Pshat is he owes the guy dealt with with this guy dealt with that guy, and he's reimbursing the guy for the money that he spent. That's a separate issue. In other words, he never bought the yain nesach. He's not allowed to buy yain nesach. So Hanesin Dina Lechem V'Yakum. He goes ahead to a Chem V'Yakum. And he tells him, you go ahead and eat and drink by this company, whatever you need. And I'll have a cheshbon with the company. But I already paid the company a dinner. So Hareza Cheshish were worried, Shem Yishtayayin. Maybe this guy is going to drink by this company wine. And what's the problem? So it's Keilu that this Balabayas went ahead and bought from the Chenveni the Yain Nesach, and he gave the Peil the Yain Nesach. Ukeneged Zeh is also B'Shviyas Aser. The same thing would be, if it would be Kigain Shanasim Dinner Lechenveni Yisrael, Amoritz, the same story. He goes ahead to a Chenveni with an Amoritz, and he gives him a dinner. And he tells his Yiddish worker, Leich Ve'achel V'ani Mechashiv. So it's also Keilu. It's Keilu, he was Michael him, knows he Keilu bought the items that the Chenveni is giving to this worker, and now he's giving it to the worker, or the Chenveni is giving it Bishlichusei. But it's Keilu, the items that the Chenveni is giving Bishlichusei are items which the Balabai is bought. The Achal Hapel Davar Sheinim Oser is also Oser. It's also Oser because again, it's Keilu, you bought the Davar Sheinim Oser, and you're being Michael the Pale, the Davar Sheinim Oser. That's all talking about if you paid the chenveni before the pail went in. However, Avalim Omelem, Ichlush Subedinazeh, he knows he didn't pay the chenveni. He gave them the money. He gave them a dinner. He says, go ahead and eat and drink. That's one option. Another option, that's for sure no problem. In the first case, he actually paid the chenveni. So it's Keilu, he bought the items that the chenveni is giving to them, and he's giving it to them after he bought it, so that he's using Yisuri Ano. But over here, he didn't pay the Chenveni. He tells them, you go ahead and eat from the Chenveni, Mani Pireya. Is Afal Pishin Nishtabit, as soon as the Chenveni gave it to them, so really he owes the Chenveni the money. So the Chur, if he owes the Chenveni the money that's a din from the din Midin Arev, we learned in Hilchas Ishus. Whereas if I tell you, give someone money and I'll pay you back, so I become a chuyiv to pay you. That's a mehilchim midin arev. So Meil al is over here, but the chenveni is giving to the pelim, and through that he becomes mechuyev the money. So l'chura, since he becomes mechuyev the money, so let's have it a din keilu like he bought it from the chenveni. So we say no. When he gives the chenveni money, so it's keilu he bought it. If there would be specific money that he starts owing the chenveni, so it also have a din like he bought it. But over here, he doesn't have a specific money that he owes the chenveni. He owes the chenveni as a person. He owes money, but there's no specific shiba. That's what he's saying. Aval pishin nishtabit. He became meshubit to the chenveni. There's no specific place where the shiba is meyuchadan. So memela is hareza muter. No, it's not kilo. He's not involved. He's b'chlal not involved. It's between the pelim and the chenveni. He's going to pay for it. but he's not involved. If he paid for it already, so it's kilo, he bought it and he gave it to the payalim. Masha'enkin, if he gave the payalim money, the chavadi is not involved. And even if he didn't give the payalim money, but he told the payalim, you eat, and then later he's going to pay the company, it's also not considered that he was involved. Halacha chav zayin. Melech shoyimechalik yeni la'om, v'lekech mehem domav kima sheyirtza. So he had wine, he had a lot of wine, and he wanted to get money for the wine. So his rule was that everyone has to come and buy from him wine, with the price that he makes up, whatever the price is that he made up for the wine. So everyone has an obligation to come and buy from him wine. Now this yain is yain nesach. Is now if a yid is going to go and get this wine, so obviously he's not going to be able to do anything with this wine. This wine is yain nesach. So mainly he's not going to be able to do anything with this wine. So what he does is he tells the goy azay, here's the money that you need the wine that I would have to give to buy the wine, and I'll give you the money. The like a kilo lend you the money. You're going to go and get this wine, and then eventually you'll pay me back. You'll pay me back for maybe at a cheaper price. So the question is, in other words, I never got the wine. The guy got the wine, and the guy is kilo paying me back for the money I lent him. So as I say, Melech shehoyim mechalik yeni lam v'lekech mehem domav k'fi mashirtz. Is al yemerodum la'akim. A person shouldn't tell a guy halach mechsayim zuz. He has 200 zuz, which is what I would have to give the melech. But I don't. If I go and give it to the melech and I take the wine, so obviously I'm not going to be able to use the wine. You take the wine. V'yikanes tachti. You go instead of me. Be'etzer hamelech. Kidei sheyikach akum hayayin shekasu b'shem Yisrael. The purpose what he's interested in is that the guy should take this wine from the melech, which he wrote b'shem Yisrael, and v'yikin ha'akum hadam lemelech, and this money the guy is going to give to the melech. The pashas eventually the guy is going to pay him back. The guy is going to pay him back. But the maisa is, since he told him you go to the melech instead of me, so it's kilo the guy is going in his stead. So the wine that the guy took from the melech is kilo the yid's wine. And since it's kilo the yid's wine, so Memela, so when the guy is going to give him money, it's kilo he's giving him money for the yid's wine. So Memela, that's no good. You shouldn't do that. Because it's kilo the guy is a shliach. Here's 200 zuz as a loan. And you get me, you make me potter from what I have to do to the melech, and then we'll make a cheshbon between ourselves. So in other words, you never went and took the wine for me. In the first case, he said to him clearly that he told him, he konis tachtai be'etzer hamelech, go instead of me be'etzer hamelech. So you're taking the wine from me. So if you're taking the wine from me, it's kilo, I got the wine. If I got the wine, so it's kilo, I'm getting paid for the wine. Mashenkin over here, I never told you to take the wine from me. I told you, you see to it that I shouldn't have any business with the Eitzer HaMelech. Malteinim Eitzer HaMelech. Do whatever it takes, that I shouldn't have to have any obligations to go and take the wine. I gave you 200, you do whatever it takes to get me out of this wine. And then eventually, you'll give me the money. You'll give me, or maybe you'll give me less money, but I'll call upon him. You'll be able to pay me the money because I never had anything to do with the wine, with the yain nesach. Halacha chavches. Akum shenoga b'yene shel Yisrael le'ensei. Knows he did something against the Yid's will. He went ahead and touched the Yid's wine. Now, so the yain becomes yain stam yenim. It has a din, it's asur bano. Since it's asur bano, so the Yid can't sell it. But on the other end, he could sell it to the guy that did it. Mutter limker eisei yain le'eisei akum she'asri levadit. That guy, he's allowed to sell it. Why? The chlal, you're not allowed to have enough misuriano. So maybe you can't take money for isuriano. But over here, really, this guy owes him money because he was mazik his wine. So the guy may think that he's giving him money for isuriano, but in reality, from the Yid's point of view, he's taking the money not because he's selling him the isuriano, because the guy caused his wine to become isuriano. He was a mazik. Shekivish nischaven zo akum lazike. Sloshna Rambam is that he was nischaven lazike. V'leser yene. So therefore, hareze kamisha shibre is sarfish chayiv l'shal. So maybe he really owes him money. V'nimtzu hadomim shelekech menu is the way hazek v'leid mei hamechira. No, you're not allowed to sell yain nesach to a guy and take money for it. But over here, it looks like you're selling the yain nesach to the guy and taking money for it. But in reality, the money you're taking is not the Dmei Nesach, but it's rather the Dmei Hezek, which this guy owes you. So therefore, it's permissible. To sell to someone else would be Osir. Masha'inkin, to sell to the guy himself is mutter. Now the Lashon Rambam is Shekivan Shnischaven Zeo Akum Lazike for lesser Yenin. This is if he would have been a Shegig, so since it's a Hezek Sheini Nikar, Be'emes Hezek Sheini Nikar, Leishme Hezek, so B'Shegig you wouldn't be Mechayev. The only Mechayev he was B'Mezit. The Lashon Rambam sounds like, let's say he did it b'mezit, he knew he did it b'mezit, but his interest wasn't la'zike, unless yene. His interest was because he wanted to be menasech yayin lavi dezara. That was his interest. So l'chura in Rambam and Chevel Mazik is l'chura mashma the pashtus hadvarim that as long as he knew he was answering the guy's wine, the yid's wine, he's chayiv. In other words, when you mazik someone has shein and nikr, as long as the person that's being mazik is aware that through what he's doing, he's being mazik that person, so that's also considered mezid and he's chayiv. Lashon Rambam over here is that the kavana was laziki lesser yenis, so that the Rambam brings that the pshat is. In other words, it doesn't mean his intent was laziki. In other words, he was aware. He was aware that what he's doing is going to be mazik that person and going to cause that the yayin should become a yayin nesach. And since he was aware of it, so memele his chayiv moment. This chayvus is not because nischaven zelazike. The chayvus was because there was an awareness that by what he's doing, he's going to be mazikim, and memelis kilo he becomes mechuyev in the money, and therefore he can take money, even though you can't take money for chalipa for yisur. I know, but he's taking money. Misad Dmei Hezek.